Hi, everybody. I am Ashley Elliott, one of the LMA CI/SIG co-chairs for 2023. Welcome to the CI Practitioner's Corner, a video series that features tips and actionable insights from those who know CI best, CI practitioners. Today, we'll be talking to Michele Gernhardt, who is currently Senior Market Researcher and Analyst at Hunton Andrews Kurth. Michele has over 20 years experience in the legal industry as an attorney, a librarian, and a CI professional. Michele's going to share some Excel for CI tips with us. Specifically, we'll be learning more about pivot tables, using data we all know and use often, the AmLaw 200 list. Turn it over to Michele, who will be sharing her screen and walking through this example.
Well, thank you, Ashley. We'll go ahead and share my screen as I'm talking. And thank you for inviting me to provide this brief introduction to a very essential tool for competitive intelligence professionals. And that would be pivot tables. Pivot tables are reside within Excel, and what their primary function is to convert data dumps, like flat Excel files, into actionable insight, into data that you can draw insights and trends from. You can use pivot tables to summarize large amounts of data, show trends over time or across categories, and generally organize, rearrange, and filter the data from your Excel files in a number of ways. You can also create visuals from these pivot tables called pivot charts to better tell your data story. Another great thing about pivot tables is that just a very little bit of knowledge goes a very long way. So we're going to just give you a brief overview of just the basic functioning of pivot tables. And you may have created these yourselves or have gotten them from your financial departments and want to learn how to do more with them. The data we're using for an example is a multi-year download of AmLaw 100 data. I've got 3 years worth of data. And as you can see here, you've got each fiscal year for a firm in a different row. And it is kind of hard to really work with data in this format, even though it is a lot of very useful information. So it's very easy to create a pivot table from a table. You would just go to your insert here and click pivot table. It does a little dotted line around all of the cells in your table, and it's gonna dump it onto a new worksheet. I'm gonna click OK. And now it's taken you over to a separate tab. And now all of your columns from your flat data file are now here for you to work with and rearrange. And just as at the outset, what we'll do is we'll just pick organization names. That's the names of all your firms. And instead of them being there 3 times each, they'll just be here 1 time each. If you scroll down here, you can see that. Something very important to know about pivot tables is that if there's anything that you need to correct in the underlying data, you do that on this page. So for example, before I started working with this file, one of the firm names had some formatting differences in the way the name appeared in the cell here. So then on the pivot table, it appeared twice. So I just copied, for example, Ballard's bar, and pasted it, went over to the pivot table. And then whenever you make changes in your underlying data, you just click refresh, and then it will update that in your pivot table, and then you'll be working with your most updated version of the data. So I've got my list of firms. Let's just pull in the gross revenue. I'm going to click gross revenue, and pivot tables helps you out, and it puts it in the values column for you. And it's just summarizing all 3 years of data that we have. So we could quickly rank these firms. You could do more sort options, and I'm going to put these in descending order based on the sum of gross revenue. Click OK. And now the 3-year sums of gross revenue are here, and you are ranking the firms by that value. I can filter this further just by, you can go to value filters and pick a range of values, or for example, you just wanted to see the top 10 or top 20. You could use this arrow button or make the change with your keyboard here and click OK. And now it's narrowed it down to the top 10. And I can make a chart very quickly off of this data just by clicking pivot chart here. It has recommended pivot tables also, because it will create a pivot table using what format it thinks might be the most useful. I'm going to click bar chart here and click OK. And it's taken the firm names and their gross revenues and put them in a chart for us. You've got these other chart elements here where you can double click on them and edit them. Wall 100, top 10, gross revenue. If you have an element you don't want, you could just click delete, it takes it out. And now I can copy this just by right click copy or a control C and paste that into a Word document or into an email or anything else you might be working with. And then instead of, you know, a numerical representation, you have a visual representation. You can also rearrange your pivot table. So right now it's you've got the lowest value at the top. And this is something funky about pivot tables, where if you say to put the highest values ranked at the top, it actually puts them at the bottom. So if you really want the highest values at the top, you have to say ascending. And it has rearranged it for you here. Oops, excuse me. And if you look over here at your data, you'll see it's on the bottom. Kirkland's on the bottom here and the top here. And that's just the way they behave. And that's something good to know. So right now I've got all 3 years worth of data here. And I just went ahead and deleted my table. You can delete them and create new ones, your charts. Let's say I want to break down by fiscal year. I'm going to took the fiscal year value and I'm just going to put that into columns. And now you've got that broken down by fiscal year here. And another neat thing that you can do with pivot tables is you can do different calculations. Now, I'm just using a simple numerical value and asking for a grand total. If you wanted to, you could pick a value that's not based on numerical values like organization name, and it will do counts instead. So counts of firms within a certain range of revenue or within a location. I can also just change the calculation. So if you wanted to find out which firms had the highest rate of growth, you could go into a value of a field here, right click, and do your show values as, and you see you've got a lot of default ones put in here. And we're going to do percent difference from. And our base field is, we're going to look across fiscal years. So we're going to do fiscal year, and we're going to be looking at, we can take 2021 and we want to see how it compares to 2020 and how 2020 compares to 2019. And you could say previous and click OK. Oh, apologies. There was a mistake. It didn't like all of my sorting that was happening there. So I have to clear my filters and try again. All right. Right click, show values as, difference from, fiscal year, previous. Do I want to turn off? Yes, I do. Apologies. I don't know why it was doing that, but as you can see, it fixed my error for me. Didn't happen anytime I practiced for this, but there you go. So now this has changed from those values to the differences in prior years. That's why 2019 is blank. So you can see revenue for Ackerman, for example, went up 3.57% and then 9.31. Now, what we can't do here with this data, since we've done these calculations, is we can't sort it within this pivot table. But, you know, it's already done all this work for me. So what I do when I want to use some data that I've worked with in a pivot table is I might just copy it, right copy, and either within a new spreadsheet, a new tab, or even on the same tab, I'm just going to paste it as values and create a new table. And then my table has headers. And then I can go ahead and do the sorting so that I have the firms that grew the most at the top. So we're going to do sort largest to smallest. You'll see these nulls. That's because these firms, several of them went through mergers. So they don't have values for the years to compare them to. But you can see it's sorted the rest of them for me. and Cadwalader had the highest revenue increase. And right now it's doing it in decimals, but you can always format the cells and change that to percents. And then this is a table you could clean up and share with your group easily. So I hope that was very helpful to you. I'm going to turn it back over to Amy, and I'm happy I got to share this with you.
Thanks, Michelle. That was super helpful. I was learning a lot as you went, and I think as you gave examples for gross revenue, I think a lot of those are applicable to a lot of the other metrics that are within the data. And I'll say when you start out pivot tabling, it's good to know what you're shifting around and what kind of story you want to tell before you get started. But as you had gross revenue in that example, I'll say if people watch this again to kind of catch the step-by-step, I would encourage you to take out gross revenue and put in profits per partner, revenue per lawyer, and number of attorneys, head count. There's a lot of things you can measure year over year in the very same way that Michelle showed us. So I thought that was a great example with practical information that we all should have access to. And Michelle has pulled from law.com Compass year over year, but if you have the report and you've been getting just the yearly survey, you can combine that data into one and use it that way as well. So this was super helpful. Thank you so much, Michelle, for that. I know Michelle's got a lot of great knowledge on the business intelligence side with Excel and Tableau and Power BI. And this is just a small taste of business intelligence as folks are kind of getting into that world. So thank you, Michelle, and thanks everyone for tuning in. I hope you'll join us for the next CI Practitioners Corner coming soon. Thank you.